4:18 p.m. Southern Caribbean Sea. The horizon is a hard silver line when a Venezuelan patrol ship throws its bow to port and points straight at USS Knights, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer sailing a lawful track in international waters. No preamble, no radio check, just steel and wake. On the bridge, the watch team doesn't blink. In CIC scopes brighten and voices go crisp. Closest point of approach drops under 3 miles. The order is simple and surgical. Maintain ROE. Log everything. Hail once, then go active. A low chime rolls through CIC, not an alarm, a heartbeat. On the bridge, a boatswain's mate checks the flagstaff as if respect itself has weight. Below, a machinist's mate palms a warm valve and says nothing. The ship's pulse is steady. The officer of the deck glances once at the helmsman and once at the horizon. 2 nods, no words. That's the culture when steel is in the water and unfamiliar wake lines are stretching thin. The crew doesn't get louder. It gets clearer. In the ready room, the MH-60R team reads from muscle memory, fuel oil optics, laser safeties translation, the Spanish hail phrase to be firm without being theatrical. The pilot touches the airframe as if shaking hands before a long day. Over the net, CIC merges the world into a single picture surface, plot air plot, SLQ-32 spectrum, trace weather traffic. It's a quilt of calm in a sea that's beginning to bristle, and somewhere off the port bow, a lens finds you a phone camera, on a moving deck, a social clip waiting to be born. That's the unspoken pressure, not just steel on steel, but narrative on narrative. If there's going to be a story tonight, it will be told with the patience of professionals, not the adrenaline of a dare. Hails go out in English and Spanish. Silence answers back. The Venezuelan helmsman isn't drifting, he's choosing. The destroyer's posture shifts subtle, deliberate, unmistakable. The 5-inch HR-62 Mk-45 eases to an observable bearing. Long-range optics settle on the contact. SLQ-32 starts recording every sweep and squeak in the ether. The point is not to threaten, it's to be legible, present, professional, and prepared. For the next minutes, everything is time-stamped, every bearing change, every exhaust flicker, every word on the net. One misstep is escalation, one gap is weakness. Neither will come from Knights. 4:22 p.m. The patrol ship digs in 26 knots, now diesel haze visible. CPA 2.1 nautical miles time to CPA 6 minutes. This isn't shadowing, it's a pressure pass. Flight ops go green. An MH-60R Seahawk lifts from the deck with nothing louder than its purpose. Today the helicopter is a non-lethal lever optics altitude and a message, we see you, we're ready, and we're not alone. A low chime rides the intercom again, steadying, not urgent. The OOD murmurs the words sea room, and the helm answers in half-wheel corrections that barely move the horizon line, but change the math. A boatswain on the bridge wing tightens the lanyard on his sound-powered headset, a tiny ritual that says we're here and we're listening. 4:26 p.m. The Seahawk drops to a conservative 200 feet levels at 1.5 nautical miles, close enough to be seen far enough to avoid theatrics. The MX-20 FLIR paints heat across steel. The sensor operator calls steady. A green laser pulse touches the patrol ship's bridge. Glass lawful, non-damaging, absolutely unmistakable. The helo broadcasts in 2 languages, unsafe maneuvering in international waters. Alter course. Movement flickers on the patrol ship's forecastle. Hands wave, bodies shift away from the forward gun. Posture drifts from bold to cautious. Speed eases. Wake shortens. The geometry cools. 4:28 p.m. The radio cracks. Spanish first formal, slightly brittle, a line about sovereign duty. The reply from Knights is measured, an evergreen U.S. warship conducting legal transit in international waters. Your movements are recorded. Maintain safe distance. The helicopter climbs 50 feet, holds bearing, and makes sure the moment looks like a diagram rather than a dare. 4:32 p.m. 19 knots. A small course change enough to bleed the collision narrative out of the moment. The TEDO calls a negative lock, negative tone, posture steady. On some deck over there, a young sailor finally exhales. On the destroyer, nobody smiles. They just keep counting. 4:38 p.m. The patrol ship now rides 6 miles off the starboard quarter, still visible, still sovereign, and no longer a threat. Presence, not provocation. That's the play. The why behind the wait quiet victories don't travel as far as loud mistakes, but they travel deeper. 2 weeks earlier, September 2nd, 2025, U.S. Southern Command publicly confirmed that 2 large smuggling vessels were kinetically neutralized in international waters after repeated warnings. Drones under U.S. Coast Guard authority backed by Navy ISR executed clean strikes. The cargoes were suspected synthetic opioids bound for the U.S. Predictable result, a surge in Venezuelan coastal and offshore patrols, erratic routes, low-slow flyovers by light attack jets, radars, and EO pods on weapons off. The goal wasn't war, it was friction data collection plus political theater. The encounter with Knights fits that pattern exactly, a close-pass narrative aimed at headlines and leverage. The American answer, professional, predictable, controlled. Zoom in on the human consequences. After those interdictions, coastwise traffic got skittish. Smuggling hulls shifted from dusk to pre-dawn. Fishing boats shadowed shipping lanes as if proximity could borrow legitimacy. Families on the islands watched rumors spin faster than the trade winds. In that churn, a destroyer like USS Knights isn't just guarding law. It's guarding predictability, a precious commodity for ferries that need to run on time, for pilots who hate rewriting safety notices on a Sunday, and for dock workers who simply want to keep the week on schedule. The politics are layered. A coastal ministry needs a clip for domestic television. An opposition party wants to brand the sea itself as an insult. A neighboring island government just wants its tourism season to survive a rumor mill. All of that swirls into a single question when a patrol ship swings wide toward an American hull. Will today be a procedure or a show? If it's a show, everybody loses. If it's a procedure, the world goes on. So the U.S. answer is designed for the long game: conduct, record, de-escalate, outlast. A chart that reads 34 nautical miles from land is an argument you can make with a ruler. A helicopter at conservative altitude is a picture you can show at a consulate. A green warning laser is a footnote in a report, not the headline of a crisis. In a region where gossip is fast and supply chains are fragile, those differences decide whether tomorrow's morning radio opens with weather and not with war. How you deter without shouting legality first. Knights is on a track outside territorial seas. Law draws lanes you can sail confidently. The ROE sequence is baked in warn: show, prepare, record. Presence means cameras up, logs, tight weapons visible but uncommitted. You deny the other side both the clip and the pretext. Legibility next. The destroyer makes sure every audience, bridge crew, smugglers, allies can read the posture. SPY-1D is painting behavior, not just dots. Acceleration curves, intercept vectors, formation, discipline. SLQ-32 catalogs emissions for the legal file and the next intel brief. Link 16 pushes a clean picture to partners watching from the ABC Islands. You're not grandstanding. You're choreographing clarity. Lethality held in reserve. The white dome of failing CIWS doesn't need to speak to be understood. Neither does a 5-inch turret with doors open. But the larger quiet is electronic, no fire control lock, no tone that dares the other bridge crew to overreact. Discipline keeps authority, restraint keeps initiative. There's an old seamanship phrase, conspicuous compliance. You don't just follow the rules, you make it easy to see that you're following the rules. Navigation lights, AIS, safety broadcasts, Colreg signals, textbook clean even under pressure. Inside ROE, the choreography protects judgment. A watch team that knows exactly which step it's on has room to think. It protects dignity to yours and theirs. If the other ship drifts from assertive to cautious without humiliation, you don't have to meet the same hull at ramming speed tomorrow. And the crew professionals like checklists, because checklists protect memory when adrenaline doesn't. Hails, read. Cameras rolling. Read. No lock unless line X is crossed. Read. When the moment gets strange, you'll still sound like yourself. The non-lethal ladder that works. Tonight's win without noise is a template. Hails, then optics. Use VHF and show the camera. Everyone behaves better when they know the tape is rolling. A helicopter as posture, not provocation. The MH-60R stays outside a flyover, uses FLIR and a green laser to be seen not to bait. Spectrum pressure, SLQ-32 logs every radar lick. If the foreign ship paints in low-power search, it's recorded as targeting behavior, absent fire control tone, exactly the line you need the world to see. Geometry over adrenaline. Maintain sea room, insist on predictable angles, avoid the dramatic turn that becomes a tabloid screenshot. There's art to the latter. The VHF hail is measured firm enough to carry neutral enough to leave an exit. The optics are high quality, not dramatic. FLIR frames are wide contextual documentary. The green laser isn't a dare. It's a reminder that glass has eyes. Even the helicopter's orbit has manners. Avoid the swoop that feels like a dive. Favor the profile that reads witness, not warning. Spectrum pressure is the quietest rung. SLQ-32 writes a diary the other side will never read, but will someday feel. An emitter that blinks into and out of search mode and never tastes fire control tone is a technicality to engineers and a political shield to diplomats. You don't argue with adjectives later, you bring the tape. Geometry is the last rung before escalation and often the most persuasive. The destroyer keeps the bow on, bow off relationship predictable, refuses the dramatic cross, and chooses the angle that makes collision narratives mathematically implausible. You can feel the temperature drop across the waves when the other helm finally admits the math. Near the 8 minutes that decide everything. 4:22 p.m. The patrol ship's bow wave hardens, its wake rifles straight. In CIC, you can hear pens uncap. The TAO speaks once, maintain posture. Record, no lock. The words are almost a lullaby. 4:24 p.m. The Seahawk slides left of the destroyer's track and descends to the agreed altitude. The sensor operator reads deck details visible through the MX-20 covered weapon, 5 crew forward, 1 camera high on the bridge wing. The helicopter's call is warm but unmistakable. Unsafe approach. Alter course. International waters. 4:26 p.m. A green flicker touches the bridge glass of the patrol ship. 2 figures step back. One raises a radio to his ear, then lowers it, then raises it again. The CPA drops another 1/10. The helmsman on nights trims 2 degrees and buys time without ceding position. 4:28 p.m. Spanish replies formal brittle. The destroyer answers in the same register. The helicopter climbs 50 feet, holds bearing, and keeps the scene documentary clean. Anxiety drains into procedure. 4:30 p.m. Something changes. Speed slips 2 knots. The patrol ship eases a degree. On a deck somewhere, a young sailor breathes again. On the destroyer, no one relaxes. They just keep counting. 4:32 p.m. 19 knots and a little more air between steel. Negative lock, negative tone, the TAO repeats. The patrol ship chooses the lane that keeps everyone sovereign and no one humiliated. The math has spoken. The wider arc, politics, proximity, perception. When the clip hits the world, it won't be thrilling. That's by design. Editors in allied capitals will see a helicopter that never dives a destroyer, that never lunges, and a patrol ship that finally behaves like a neighbor. Insurers see a day that ended by 4:38 p.m. without a closure notice for sea lanes. Port authorities see lanes that never closed. Coast Guards see a playbook they can live with. But the people who most need the quiet will notice it hardest. A cook on a ferry checks his watch and doesn't cancel the evening run. A dock worker tells his kid he'll make the school play. A harbor pilot keeps his gloves on the dashboard because the radio's clear and the tide won't wait. Those are not headlines, but they're the oxygen of an ocean economy. Adversaries will study the tape too. They'll look for a flicker of temper, a sloppy angle, some proof that a uniform couldn't help itself. They won't find it. What they will find is a ship that showed its tools and kept them sheathed, a crew that spoke its warnings and didn't shout a moment that de-escalated because the United States refused to lend it drama. That's not just seamanship. That's strategy. Kibrash Wacker tomorrow's edge without firing a shot. Even as SPY 1D and SLQ-32 carry the night, the fleet is fielding upgrades that make future encounters calmer sooner. AN SPY 6 Plus, Aegis Baseline 10, clearer small target fidelity earlier in the timeline, more seconds for judgment, fewer inches for error. Upgrades don't make ships brave. They make ships patient. Small targets stop blinking at the waterline. Wakes become signatures. Intentions appear earlier. The GIF's BY6 gives bridge cruises measured in seconds. Seconds you can turn into calm words and graceful angles. CWIP Block 3 NSLQ 32 VI-7 Next Gen. EW with non-kinetic shaping, widening the gap between observed and provoked, and letting influence replace insult. Unmanned ISR MQ-8C, Fire Scout persistent eyes to keep helicopters discretionary and de-escalatory. Long, dull hours of orbit record the pieces a 10-second phone clip never tells. Unmanned eyes let manned crews be artists of restraint. Tie it all with Link 16 CEC and allied sensors ashore on the ABC Islands, and you get something precious: narrative insurance. Tomorrow's dispute won't be your word versus theirs. It'll be tracks and timestamps signed by sovereigns who watched the same sea and wrote down the same numbers. Arguments shrink when facts refuse to. Final 2 miles. By 4:45 p.m., the Seahawk is lashed to the deck, and the Venezuelan patrol ship is a 9-mile echo, still moving, still being watched, and no longer steering the moment. The log reads like a metronome, hails optics, laser course changes, climb out recovery, no warning shots, no collision alarms, presence over panic. In these waters, that's how you draw a line everyone can see without leaving scars you don't need. Post-incident, the ship doesn't exhale. She debriefs. The bridge writes up bearings and bearings again. CIC tags the minute a camera blinked. The air detachment notes the exact height of the final orbit. Not because there was failure, but because tomorrow deserves an even cleaner script. A senior chief leans over the chart and draws 2 angles that could have been better not criticism craft. By 5:10 p.m., the light is a softer silver. The Seahawk is bedded down tie-down chains, quiet against the deck. In the wardroom, the discussion runs like a professional hymn posture, over panic presence, over provocation. Somewhere inside the hull, a sailor texts a parent, "Long day." Boring ending. That's the win. And it is. No warning shots, no collision alarm, no rumor storm for island radios to spin at sunrise. Just a lawful ship on a lawful line, a neighboring hull that remembered common sense, and a log that will read as clearly in an embassy as it does in a ready room. Tomorrow, someone else will try a fresh angle. Tomorrow, USS Knights will have the same answer, calm, recorded, and ready. So here's the question for you. Should the U.S. lean harder into this non-lethal ladder, or is there a point where a warning round speaks louder than a camera? Tell me below. If clear-eyed naval analysis matters to you, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who follows maritime security without the noise. Next time a patrol ship decides to play chicken with a U.S. destroyer, they might want to pick a smaller bird.